Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Winning Drive podcast. I am Reeta Hubbard, the NFL chick, co-host of the Glenn and Rita show on 105.7 The Fan. And of course, with my guy, Cordell Woodland from Shaking It Up Sports and the Ravens reporter for 105.7 The Fan. And Cordell, the Ravens are 2-0, 1-0 in the division as they go on the road and beat the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24. And I have to admit, Cordell, I was very confident prior to this game starting that the Ravens was going to come out with a win. I tweeted that. I thought that they were going to win. I went on another show and they asked me for predictions. I had them winning 21-19, close, but basically a close game, but they would edge out a win. I don't know. Well, I do know, and I'll tell you why I thought that the Ravens would win. But I definitely felt confident, probably more than most, in going to this game, coming out with a W. So when you saw this on the schedule, what were your thoughts originally?
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Bengals to win on Friday's episode.
You did.
I did pick the Bengals to win. And I thought that I thought that the Ravens back end of their defense, the injuries there with Marlon and no Marcus, I thought that would show up a little bit today. It didn't show up as much. I think in the red zone, you started to see the Bengals start to focus on their one-on-one matchup, specifically with T. Higgins, because he had a mismatch pretty much wherever he lined up at. But outside of that, I thought they did a really good job limiting the big plays for the Bengals. They did what they always do. They kept everything in front of them. And the one thing about playing the Bengals, you can't let Higgins and Chase go off. That's what the Ravens did. They stopped Chase and they, Higgins was kind of the guy that they had to give less attention to. But definitely a good day for them. This, all in all, on both sides, I just thought this was a Ravens type of win. This gave me a little bit of the feels from 2019 where you're having those long drives. They had a 6-minute scoring drive today, but you're also seeing them being able to put games away with the running game right now while also being able to hit in the passing game. Lamar missed on some throws early, but definitely put it together as the game went on. Got his second chance to hit ZAy Flowers down the field, didn't miss it, threw a beautiful outside shoulder pass to Nelson Aguilar on the touchdown. Him and Mark Andrews connecting like they had never left. So it was a really good sign, I thought, all around, especially considering how the offense looked last week. But even defensively, I know the Bengals had their moments, which I figured they would, but the defense played winning football.
I agree. I mean, listen, they definitely showed up in the moments that they were supposed to, and including Geno Stone's interception, which, by the way, Geno, push Joe Burrow out the way. Okay, brother? Joe Burrow is not going to do anything to you. Push him out the way and cut inside and go back for the pick six. Okay, I don't even understand why you allowed that man to impede you. You must have been tired. I'll give you that. Maybe you was a little gassed right there. But ultimately, you got to push that man out the way because Joe Burrow is working with one good leg. And that is why I picked the Ravens, Cordell, to win this weekend, because I knew that it was going to be an issue for Joe Burrow to really move around. And that happened on Sunday. It happened in the game. In the second half, yeah, he moved a little bit better, probably because they were down and he kind of had to move because now the pass rush was kind of getting to him and he had to extend some plays. But in the first half, he was very statuesque. He was just standing in the pocket, not really moving around. And a lot, I'm sure, has to do with the fact that he's still dealing with a calf strain that he has to be careful about, because a lot of us know that calf strains can turn into Achilles injuries. And I'm sure that that's in the back of his mind and playing it safe. Again, in the second half, he did get a little bit more elusive, but that's not the Joe Burrow that we're used to seeing, and I think that that's definitely a part of what was missing from them today. That being said, he was still out there. Jamar Chase was still out there. T. Higgins was still out there. Tyler Boyd was still out there. Joe Mixon was still out there. So you still had your guys out there. You still had your playmakers out there that could potentially overcome your shortcomings of not being able to move around in the pocket much because of your injury. And while T. Higgins was the guy today, I think that that's safe to say. Jamar Chase really did nothing today to help Joe Burrow. And I'm with you. I credit that to the defense. I think that they had an excellent game plan, Mike McDonald, to eliminate him and to let the other guys get more involved. Now, we did see other guys get more involved, and obviously T. Higgins, had a touchdown, and Joe Mixon, when they utilized him, because they were behind pretty much this whole game, or this whole game actually. Then and in the second half they started utilizing him a little bit more, but ultimately the guy that they needed, I think, number 21. Number one. I don't know why I said number 21, but number one and Jamar Chase just was not there today. And obviously that's who he loves. That's his go-to guy. And while T. Higgins is more than capable of being the guy, and he showed that today, you still need both of them. It's a tag team effort. And when you eliminate one of those guys, I think it does create a little bit of problems for the Bengals. So I think I'm with you. I'm definitely crediting that defense. On the offensive side, listen, I think that everybody's question mark about the offensive line and how they would hold up, particularly because the offensive line definitely struggled week 1 against the Houston Texans. And again, I am not sure, Cordell, if that struggle that we saw was more about the Ravens in terms of what they were doing, or that the underestimation or understanding, lack of understanding of the Houston Texans defense, because they have a new head coach in D'Amico Ryans. And we know that they added guys like Will Anderson. So these were guys that were not there last year and then were available this year. And so maybe it was just that they weren't familiar with what exactly the Texans were going to do. But you really have to credit the way that this offense came out today. The first drive, I don't know how much better you can get in terms of just moving down the field and coming up with the touchdown. I have so much. I'm gonna let you speak, but this offense definitely came out today and showed that they could potentially be scary.
Yeah, for sure. When we talked all offseason about the Ravens investing in this wide receiver room, today was kind of what you were envisioning. Everybody being able to get involved. And that's with Odell leaving the game with an ankle injury. And before he left, he was pretty involved. And Harb says it's not serious. He said neither of the injuries today were serious to Odell or to Odafe Owe. So we'll see. Because the Ravens and their injury reports as of late have been a little different at times from what they originally say, but we'll see what this is. Hopefully it's not anything serious with Odell, but what you saw was Nelson Aguilar come in, get an expanded role, and really become Lamar's guy as the game went on. It's 5 catches for 63 yards on 6 targets. Nelson Aguilar was pretty good today. ZAy Flowers, I expected ZAy Flowers' opportunities to be cut in half. He had 10 targets last week. He gets 5 targets this week. But the efficiency is still there. 4 catches, 62 yards. And really the one incompletion could have been a touchdown potentially if Lamar puts it on him. So I was really impressed with ZAy, Mark Andrews, and he and Lamar's connection. It's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It was good to see Mark back out there. And I think him being out there was a big reason why the offense was able to stabilize, because Lamar has his guy. You look to last week, and even it wasn't just Lamar, but you even look at the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes last week in their game when Travis Kelce wasn't there. Neither of them had their guy that they know gets open immediately. No matter what the play is called, they didn't have the guy there that they can trust no matter what. Lamar and Odell Beckham's trust has gotten great. Lamar and Zay's connection has been good, but nobody has the trust of Lamar like Mark Andrews. And I just think having him back made Lamar play more confident. And with Lamar playing confident and getting the ball out of his hands, or to being decisive and knowing when to take off and run. I think that also helped the offensive line as
Yep,
well, because
for
like you said,
sure.
the offensive line played really well. And I think it started with him being decisive. That's a part of the problem last week, him having lanes and not taking them, or
Yep.
him holding on to the ball longer than he should. So when he was decisive today and played confident, you got to see everybody else around him do the same. And I think, in terms of the offense as a whole, this is what Todd Monken, I think, envisioned. I think this is what we all envisioned from
Yep.
Todd Monken, when he was hired, that he would be able to find a way to spread the ball around, utilize all his guys. He kept saying spacing, forcing defenses to cover every blade of grass, creativity. That's what we got to see today. And J.K. Dobbins is another one that's a big loss for this offense, and you still got to see the running game be there. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, both of them pretty much same type of workload. Gus Edwards more efficient in his 10 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. But you get Justice 11 carries, 41 yards. Lamar 12 carries, 54 yards. The running game will always be there as long as number 8 is in the backfield.
I agree. And I'm glad that this week he allowed himself to take the lanes that were there, because sometimes, guys are not going to get open and you just got to make a play. And he allowed himself to extend the play today with his with his legs in addition to his arms. And that is what you're going to need from Lamar. He's going to have to, look, as much as he probably wants to stand in the pocket, I'm sure he doesn't love sometimes having to run, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And when a play needed to be made, Lamar made those plays today. And so big ups to him. A couple of things that I observed. Number one, first of all, I was so relaxed, even with this offensive line, in terms of like 2 guys being added because of injuries. I don't know why, but I've always trusted Makari. I like him. I think that he's a very good player. There's a reason why he's on this team, because he can fill in any gap. He can be the center. He can be, the guard. He can be the left tackle, in which he was today. And I thought that he played very well. But Sam Mustipher, Owens Mills native, local guy, good counsel kid, turned around and played center off of the practice squad. And this was a guy that obviously we saw, in the preseason, Cordell. And I thought that, he obviously played well enough to be added to the practice squad, but he had an opportunity today, and he definitely took advantage of that opportunity. I thought that he played as well as you can expect a guy in his position to play. I don't see how you can put him back on the practice squad after that. I think you got to put him on the 53-man roster, even if he's not on the active game day roster. I think that you have to consider putting him on the 53-man roster because of how well that he played. Now, obviously, there's other games coming up. You got the Browns eventually, whose defense has been revamped, and also the Steelers, who, they're good on defense as well. But so far, I just think that he played well enough that the Ravens you can't let that guy go. You can't put him back on the practice squad. Somebody's going to steal that man immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I was a little surprised that he didn't make the team with the initial 53. He was on my projected initial 53-man roster. So I agree with you, right? I mean, centers are just so valuable in this league. And if anytime you got to go to the backup and there's somebody that played as well as he did today, because I thought the offensive line as a unit played really well today. It's tough to put them back on there, but it's good problems to have. I think it's definitely a good momentum boost for them. They just look like the Ravens today. Honestly, it really they look good on both sides of the ball. Obviously, like I said, they had their moments defensively where they allowed some stuff to the Bengals. I thought the Bengals not running the ball as much as they probably should have helped the Ravens out as well. But all in all, on both sides of the ball, I just thought both sides did enough to win. Now, on the special teams, this was a little bit of a problem. You give up the punt return. You got the missed field goal from Justin Tucker. Just an uncharacteristically bad day for the special teams today. And it's not, anytime you got to bring the special teams up, it's not a good thing. But they that's a touchdown and a missed 3 points right there. I mean,
I'm
That's
gonna defend Justin Tucker though
I mean,
here
they
because
probably shouldn't have kicking that.
I don't think that that was a great idea. I didn't love the idea. I
Yeah.
thought that they were better off maybe taking extra 5 yards for a delay a game and punting it away and pinning them back in their own territory. I was not fond of him going for a 59-yard field goal. We know what Justin Tucker is able to do, but you have to allow your defense to go out there and play. And I just thought that that was ill-advised. Now, the good thing about that is that no points came out of that missed field goal, right? Because they had incredibly good field advantage at that point, but nothing came from it. However, if something had came from that, that's a different conversation that we're having. So, in my opinion, Harbaugh got away with one, but you just got to make better decisions than that.
I agree with you, but I think that's just what Harbaugh has shown that this is what he's going to do.
I understand.
If it's 62 and in, to be honest, I think he's going to trot Justin Tucker out there every single time because Tucker's asking to go out there, number one.
So what? You're the coach.
For sure. And I think you combine that with their trust in Tucker to pretty much make any field goal. I mean, when you're the GOAT, when you're, looked at as the greatest kicker of all time, these are the situations you're going to be thrown in. And while like I said, I agree that I would have punted. I would have taken a delay of game and punted or something there. I just think that this is what's expected of you when you're the greatest, when you have that title. This is what's when the team has that type of trust in you that they're going to send you. That they're going to throw you out there. He knew he was going out there. I was surprised. I'm always surprised when Justin Tucker misses it. I mean, who isn't surprised?
Yeah. Understood.
I just think that that's what they're always going to do with him.
I agree with that. And again, I don't agree with the idea, but I also understand the logic of Justin Tucker being a guy that you just really feel like can do anything in any situation. So he
spoiled us.
Yes, he did spoil us, and I'm still against the idea. One of the things that I think that what stood out to me was how calm I think the masses potentially felt when we found out that Odell Beckham was not coming back due to an ankle injury. This is the first time, Cordell, in a long time that the Ravens have been in this type of situation where you have a wide receiver that gets injured, and now all of a sudden the sky is no longer falling. Now all of a sudden you don't feel like that there's pressure, right? I think this is the first time in a very long time where a guy that, yes, I understand that we were still worried about Odell's health, but with the amount of money he was paid, I definitely think that he was coming in to be an impact player, right? I think that that's fair to say. So I think that seeing an impact player get injured, but not feeling a lot of like stress about it because there is so much depth in this wide receiving group that you trust or believe in, I should say, speaks volumes because I just didn't see too many people feel or look squandered because OBJ went out. You still got Rashad Bateman. You still got ZAy Flowers. Oh yeah, Nelson Aguilar actually led the team, and with 5 receptions, 63 yards and a touchdown. You still got Devin Duvernay, who was also being used. And I think that says so much about what the front office has done in terms of revamping this room. A year ago, we were embarrassed to have this conversation. Remember in training camp, you and I were like, they only got 4 guys, and we don't trust any of these guys. We didn't trust Bateman to be healthy. We didn't trust the other 3. Duvernay was, yes, cool, but we know him more as like a return specialist type of dude. And then the other 2, we were just like, okay, what's going on here? So this year, it just feels completely different, even with the notion of Aguilar or the stereotypes that we give of Nelson Aguilar, the preconceived notions about him dropping passes. You still felt comfortable with that group of people despite Odell's injury.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the vision that the Ravens had. They've been burned too many times by injuries, and their previous offensive scheme has allowed them to be to kind of and just to ignore the wide receiver room. That's what they did. It was all about the tight ends at that time. And now you had 2 active tight ends today, and you had your receivers. Even though Odell goes down, like you said, it's next man up. Nelson Aguilar comes in. ZAy Flowers gets more involved. Rashad Bateman was a part of it. Lamar's going to his check down guys. Mark Andrews is back. And everybody's was talking of, kept saying, oh, we got to, now they've given Lamar these weapons. We got to see what Lamar can do with them. Well, they look pretty good today. And today was really the first time that he had all of them out there on the field. And that's still minus J.K. Dobbins. So he looked pretty good out there. So I think that this is exactly what the Ravens had in mind this offseason when they revamped this wide receiver room, that we're going to be tougher to guard, but also that they would be able to withstand a couple of injuries in that wide receiver room, because while they did add Odell, he's an injury question mark. Bateman's an injury question mark as well. So they've got some guys behind them that they can actually trust in it showed today.
I agree. Listen, the emergence of ZAy Flowers, right? Like, that's something we have to talk about. You already talked about them lessening the targets from a week ago, which you had to assume that was going to be the case, right? I think that this week we probably assume Odell would probably get more passes his way because he didn't really get many last week. And while he was in the game, he did, get a couple of touches prior to his injury. He had 4 targets and 3 receptions. And then ZAy Flowers had 5 targets and 4 receptions. But that 52-yard pass, man, listen, when you first saw it in the air and then, the camera pans to ZAy and the 2 defenders, and you're like, whoa, how is this going to end? Yeah. And then you see how it ended. And listen, early in the game and a couple of times throughout the game, Lamar had taken some deep shots and just didn't connect. He tried with ZAy earlier in the game, just tried to get down the field, and it just didn't really work out. So it was really good to see Lamar connecting with ZAy. Now, I hope that Lamar doesn't do something as risky, having 2 defenders around the young man in the future. However, great throw, great catch, and it just continues the narrative that ZAy Flowers could potentially be the X factor and the difference maker to what this offense needed.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a great play in double coverage. Lamar puts the ball right on his face.
Perfectly.
Right on his face mask, and ZAy holds on to it in double coverage. It's exactly what you want to see. And those are some of the big plays that you're hoping to get out of this Ravens offense, because now no longer is Lamar the only home run hitter. They've got ZAy Flowers that still had the play where he's showing you how shifty he is after the catch as well. I mean, he's dangerous. And I think that they're really just starting to scratch the surface with all the different ways that they're going to try to get him the ball. But Bateman, he's still kind of easing his way out there. And I still like what I see from Rashad Bateman. He caught all 3 of his targets today, only 18 yards, but he's getting involved. He's staying active. He had a nice crackback block that they called an illegal crackback block on him. But I mean, it's just, I just like to see Bateman active. I like to see him engaged in the game. And so, I'm really excited. I thought today was a great stepping stone for the offense and their confidence going forward, to show that, hey, this thing works. We can put pressure on opposing defenses, and we can still run the ball. They're still able to run the ball and put a game away. Like Todd Monken said when they first brought him to Baltimore, he wants to be able to throw the ball well and pass the ball well. And that's what the Ravens were able to do today.
I just can't imagine what that was like, beating the Cincinnati Bengals at home, who have already lost a divisional game against the Browns the week before. Listen, I am very well aware that the Browns were 0-2 last year. Understand it. I understand that they still went to the playoffs. I understand they still went to an AFC championship game, but it feels different, right? And Roquan Smith, just said, this was personal, and this is what he said, quote, obviously The guys talk a lot, don't have a lot of respect for a lot of individuals. So you take that stuff personally. It was a great win for the team. And I can't imagine what that was like after losing back to back weeks last year to the Bengals. Now, obviously, we know Lamar wasn't there. And so, they barely got out of the playoff game on the Tyler Huntley fumble, that led to a touchdown. But now you got Lamar, who definitely didn't have all of his players. No Ronnie Stanley, no Tyler Lindenbaum, no Marlon Humphrey, no Marcus Williams. And yet you still come out and win a game like this on the road against your divisional opponent. So not only are they 0-2 overall, they're also 0-2 in the AFC North Division.
Yeah, it's a bad start for the Bengals. Like you said, 0-2 to start the year and then to be 0-2 in the division. That's not what you want, especially in a division that's going to be as competitive as I believe the AFC North will be. But it's also the fact you talked about Burrow and his calf. You looked at him at the end of the game. He was limping pretty bad. He was pretty bad. So, I mean, and he didn't look great about it. I mean, some of that frustration on his face could have been just from them losing the game, but I kind of feel like it was a little bit of both, also the loss and how he was feeling. So it's definitely not the start the Bengals wanted. Their offense looked better today than it did last week. I mean, they couldn't have looked any worse than they did against the Browns. But they still haven't looked like the Bengals offense that we've seen the last 2 years. So, bad start for the Bengals, good start for the Ravens, 2-0, getting a win in the division in the process. Now you get to come back home and go up against a Colts team whose rookie quarterback got hurt today. We'll see if he even plays the game next week. So, you feel good about that one, regardless whether he plays or not, to be honest with you. You feel good about the Ravens going against the Colts. But, yeah, I mean, it's a great start to the year. All the Ravens, it's all about that health for them, though. Hopefully, Odell and Odafe truly aren't going to be gone too long, if at all, because that compounded with what they're already dealing with, you just wonder how much a team can take.
I completely agree. So before we go, if you had some pats in the hats to give out, I'll give 2 and you give 2. What's your first pat in the hat going to be to?
I'll start with the quarterback position. I'll give one to Lamar. Good game for Lamar today. 2 touchdowns through the air. He had a couple of misses early, but he definitely made up for it as the game went on. Made some really good throws. Got to truly see his arm talent and how he can make every throw. It's just about him sticking to his mechanics and being able to make those plays consistently. But it's also his legs. I tweeted it, he's the most athletic quarterback in the league and probably the most athletic quarterback I've ever seen. I mean, Vic is definitely up there, obviously, but Lamar is he's just so different. And you talk about being a dual threat quarterback. He is the dual threat quarterback in the league. He is a guy that can change the game and affect the game in so many different ways. And today, I think you got to see probably not even, the best version of Lamar, but you got a good version of Lamar today, a guy that is making plays with his arm, but is also killing you with his legs as well.
I agree. I mean, look, like you said, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Mm-hmm. Something definitely, because, last week he had a few, and 72%, almost 73%. Completion of his passes. So, I mean, it's really hard to find somebody else after Lamar because he played exceptionally well today. But, we'll figure it out. I'll go with Geno Stone, right? Geno Stone got the interception in the red zone, goal line, close enough to the goal line. Look, again, I'm definitely critical of him not running it back. And he tweeted about that he should have had a pick 6. You should have had a pick 6, Geno. But it's cool. You did what you could, and the Ravens ended up getting points after that pick. So it all worked itself out perfectly. I think the Mark Andrews touchdown came after that. So look, it all worked itself out. So I'll give Geno a pat on the hat as well.
And he also got a game ball from Harbs in the locker room, Harbs.
Absolutely.
So, credit to Geno. I'll give one to the offensive line as a unit.
Yeah.
No sacks, as you mentioned. Lamar's able to throw the ball all over the field, 237 passing yards. They rushed for 178 yards on the ground today. Dominant day by the offensive line, I thought. And yeah, Lamar had his times where he's under pressure, but he's Houdini for a
Yep.
reason back there. I just thought with them being down their top 2 offensive linemen to go out there and face a really good defensive front and not give up a sack on the road in a division game. I give all of those guys a pat on the hat. And I saw multiple. I saw Morgan Moses have a nice block out in the open field on a toss play.
Yeah.
I saw Makari over there holding his own on the outside in the passing game. So yeah, just all of them as a unit get a pat on the hat.
I'll go with Jadeveon Clowney. Got the only sack in the game. We saw a lot of him after Oweh was out due to injury. And I just thought that he was hard. He was so hard to block. Mm-hmm. He looked like, he was just really good, particularly at the end, just getting pressure on Joe Burrow. And so I will give it to him. This looks like one of the really good pickups from Eric DaCosta. And remember, the Ravens definitely flirted with bringing in Jadeveon Clowney years before, and they finally got him. And as of right now, it looks like a really good pickup for them. Because he definitely came in the absence of Oweh and continued to be disruptive against that Bengals offensive line. So I'll definitely give Jadeveon Clowney a pat on the hat. We want to thank you all for listening. We'll be back on our next episode to just talk a little bit more about what we saw from this Ravens team on offense and defense, special teams as well, because I'm probably going to have some things to say about Jordan Stout there. I'm surprised at myself for not bringing it up today, but whiffing and just not pushing the dude out of bounds is very weird to me. And we're going to talk about that, I'm sure, on the next episode. So we want to thank you all for listening. Ravens are 2-0, 1-0 in the division. We'll talk more about that this week. From Cordell to me, this is Winning Drive.